Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Gentlemen, Joe, what time did you go to bed? Because did you go home and watch the full Wild game?
No. I watched the third period this morning. I watched the highlights. I probably got to bed about 1:15 or so.
Okay.
Like, there was a lot to catch up on, but yeah, I actually 2 nights ago, Tuesday with the 2 games into Wednesday, was far less sleep than this.
Yeah, the 10 p.m. or the 10 p.m. puck drop or whatever.
Yeah, the 10:15. Yeah. So, yes, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I think I was in bed by about 1:30. I think when I was done posting everything, probably 1:30. Had a couple cocktails. Came home.
Couple little celebratory, little cheers to Donovan Jackson.
Some whiskey gingers and getting some post-production done. But I think about 1:30. There was a King of Queens episode when I got in bed, so I got sucked into that because now I'm 32 and love King of Queens, love me some Doug Heffernan. So
got to wind down. Yeah, I was probably 1 o'clock. I guess I probably beat you guys a little bit, 1 o'clock. But what a fun night! Just to everyone who either sat at home and first or second screened the Purple Daily draft party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, or for the hundreds of people that showed up for a draft that we weren't even sure if the Vikings would make a pick, and like 90% of people stayed through 10 o'clock when they made the pick at 24. And if you missed it, you can go back, or if you didn't have a chance to catch it live in the moment, you can find the reaction to the 24th overall pick from the Fillmore last night. But yeah, just a super fun night. It's become the most fun event of the year for us. And just like meeting people at the pre-party and meeting people at when you go into the Fillmore and
taking
wander around the
pictures
building.
with people, smiling a lot.
The Sports Dad smile was on its A game last night.
It was,
sure.
yeah. Don't open the mouth much, so you're not going to see the choppers, but you get the smile.
Yeah, you get the curled up,
Yep, a little curled up. Yep,
the pursed lips.
Exactly right. But yeah, tons of great fans though, and really intelligent fans too, which I love.
Yeah. So we're gonna get to Feedback Friday here. We've got the first part of it is just a ton of reaction and even like us now that we've slept on the Donovan Jackson draft pick. So we'll spend the first part of the episode just taking some of your emails that you've sent in and tweets and YouTube comments from the last 12 hours. But let's start the show. I think we all need a boost at Quick Trip here.
Oh, yes, we do.
We're all kind of dragging a little bit this morning. So
let's start the Kruba coffee, absolutely. And look at all of these choices. And now, Sports Dad's got a question for you. Are you tired of the same old meals? Because if you are, I want you to stop by Quick Trip and consider this. The chicken at Quick Trip is absolutely outstanding. Hand-breaded, fried to perfection. Ready for you to enjoy for supper. Try Quick Trip's juicy chicken tenders or boneless wings that are perfect for dipping. That sounds good to me. Crispy chicken sandwich filled with flavor. I could go down the list, but I don't need to. What I need you to do is stop in a Quick Trip and check out the chicken. And I'm going to tell you right now, lunch or dinner, it is absolutely perfect. You can feed the whole family. Quick, it's easy. If you stayed up last night watching the draft and you're like, I don't feel like cooking, that's fine. Stop in a Quick Trip. They'll take care of you.
Or you could just crack open a Black Stack local 755.
The kids might not like that part.
Saw some of those going around the Fillmore last night for sure. Actually, I saw someone comment that there was the one Packer/Wolves fan. So after the show was over, that guy challenged Jeremiah Searles to a beer chugging contest, and he got all the smoke from a former NFL offensive lineman. So yeah, never challenge a 300-pound, 6'7" man to a beer chugging contest, but. Yeah, Black Stack is world-renowned craft beer, and you can find it all across the state of Minnesota and expanded distribution into Wisconsin, Nebraska, South Dakota, the second largest tap room in the state of Minnesota in St. Paul with a 190-inch big screen TV. It was actually featured on Love is Blind on Netflix when that came out in January. So check them out. Go to blackstackbrewing.com to see what they are all about. All right, guys, let's dive into some Feedback Friday here. Morning after edition, round 1 of the NFL draft. Matt Swanson says, despite the lack of desperate needs, did the Vikings get overly fixated on guard, taking, he's saying guard number 3, according to, consensus big board, over Malachi Starks, for instance, who is the number one safety, or Nick Emanwari, who's still sitting out there? Are we going to see Donovan Jackson go on to be a fine player while watching somebody else turn into a Hall of Fame player? No disrespect to Judd's Camp Notes, who have already put Theo Jackson in the Hall of Fame.
Stop that. So here's where I will say I feel different about the process than I did a few years back. I think that because we know that Brian Flores has a huge say. And I think that everyone in the building, including, most importantly, probably Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, respect Brian Flores, okay? So I think Thor, who knows way more than us about every player in this draft on Emanwari, called it, which is, on the surface, he looks like a Flores like blueprint, but he's not, and here's why. And it's like, oh, okay. So like Brian Flores, Thor knows how they think, and his description of Emanwari's skill set, right, did not necessarily play into really what Flores wants, but I think us on the outside who saw the description are like, oh, hybrid sort of linebacker and safety. So one, I don't think that they made a mistake there. On Starks, he might turn out to be a very good player, but again, I'm sure Brian Flores was consulted there. If Brian Flores had pounded the table and said, you have to take this guy is going to make our team. Well, because go back to the Lewis Cine draft, who was there to sort of control the room? Ed Donatel helping out? So I have a lot more faith in the process now, because in 2022, for instance, Phil, I don't think we had any idea how it worked, like who was calling what shot or why exactly. I think now having an idea of how it works, I have a lot more trust in that they are not, to use my favorite term, getting cute and doing something that might be dumb. I think that they do the most prudent thing possible with really good information.
We do have a Purple Daily Anonymous tip line note that came in minutes before the show started. And I feel like you just segued right into it. So ordinarily we might, we might hang on to this and get to it later in the show, keep the suspense. But I'm going to add this context to what you just said here. And I do have to couch this. People are really leaning on us to couch these anonymous emails, and it's become a lot of pressure.
You're going to win an award.
Judd, you might have the full email in your inbox. I know you guys were doing a Judd's hockey show, so it's possible you're behind on emails this morning. But
on work ones, yes.
I'm gonna give you a couched version of this, but my sense for the credibility of it is 10 out of 10.
Okay.
10 out of 10. I'll give you the couched version, and you can decide for yourself. From Anonymous. Hey guys, big fan of the show. And I'll phrase this as, I have a Vikings source with knowledge of the Vikings draft war room.
Oh, nice.
I'll leave it there. He tells me that there was definitely some tension in the room between offense and defense. There was tons of secondary help with the defensive staff wanting, I don't know specific players, and neither does this anonymous emailer, but you could guess for yourself all these defensive players that were on the board. There was some medical stuff in there too.
Sure.
So tons of secondary help. The defensive staff was like, yeah, we'd love that secondary help. And it sounds like, according to Anonymous's source, Kevin O'Connell came in and overruled to bolster the offensive line. Do with that information what you please, and please keep me anonymous. Always.
Okay, well that's
always anonymous.
That's yeah. Couched very well. I have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, well that's really intriguing then.
Yeah, but of course, now this sounds controversial. There's tension in the room.
And who did
right?
he overrule? That's my question. Like, was Flores pounding the table, or was it a scout? Like if you overrule, like those things happen all the time. I guess I would need to know a little bit more about who was directly involved in causing the friction. Where was the friction?
I think you can surmise, but this is also not. This is literally happening in 80% of the draft war rooms for every single pick across the entire 3 days of the draft, which is if you are the defensive coordinator and you're missing 2 or 3 pieces, or you feel like you're thin, you're banging on the table and you've got some scouts that are backing you, I'm sure. And if you're the offensive staff, you're saying, we need a left guard. We could use another this, another that. And of course, the main decision makers, Kwesi, Kevin O'Connell, have to come in and make an executive decision. And Kevin O'Connell being an offensive guy with a first-year starting quarterback about to rock. And by the way, he trusts Brian Flores to scheme up a less than perfect set of personnel. Now, they've got the best personnel they've had.
I was going to say, yeah, the personnel is pretty damn good. Like you could add to it for depth, but the personnel's not bad.
Yep. And there might be, the other thing too that we don't know is, and we'll find out in the coming days, they might have a secondary move coming down the pipe at some point. So I don't know. I love this email. This is really good information. I think if you were to run this by Kwesi and company, he'd say, yeah, it's called collaboration. We take information from here, information from there, then somebody has to make a decision at the end of the first round.
I would be on the defensive friction bandwagon if there had been a defensive tackle that had dropped, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
Like because that's the one place where I thought and think that you could use help because that's a rotational guy, ideally on day one.
Like if the Steelers had taken Shedeur and Derek Harmon is sitting there at
then
24.
I think you take Derek Harmon. But, to go back to the safety thing, first of all, I will say it again. I'm not a huge fan of taking safeties first round. The 2022 controversy to me was this. If you were going to take one first round, Kyle Hamilton had fallen to you. And you then bumped back to 32nd and took Scene, who obviously was a complete bust. But in this case, too, it's hard for us, at least the day after the draft, in my opinion, to moan and complain for how long we have about the interior line, at least, right? And now they've completely addressed it, and then we're like, well, that's not good enough. And in Jackson, I would be a little bit more concerned about this if Jackson hadn't also played left tackle. The fact that he bumped outside and played left tackle, to me, is a game changer because he was good there. And, okay, now, again, that's a hybrid type of thing. So he's not just a guard. He's going to play guard probably here, I think, but he can play tackle. So I think I'm much more open to this idea because if something happens to a tackle, there's a chance that he can go play there. It's versatility as well. So, but I'm not going to complain about something that I've complained about previously based on you haven't addressed it.
Yeah, I have a couple follow-up takes to those offensive line takes, but I'll weave them into, because we got more where this came from here. Let's continue with a little bit of the pushback here. So Joe H says, it feels like the goalposts are being moved in Vikings media. We were told all offseason that the Vikings were in a great spot where they didn't need to reach for a need in the first round and could truly go best player available or trade down. The justification for the Donovan Jackson pick is that you needed a guard and he was the last first or second round guy available, or that there was like a cutoff there. So you had to take him at 24. Literally the process and logic you want to avoid in this situation. Factor in the great value the two teams behind the Vikings got to trade back and the talent still on the board at valuable positions, and this was not the optimal pick. My pushback to this pushback would be you can't draw the conclusion that Emailer Joe is drawing unless you see the Vikings big board. Because by the way, ESPN spent the whole night just kind of going back through Twitter. We weren't watching it, obviously, because we were doing our draft party show. Basically outraged that Mel Kiper had Shedeur as, one of the top 6 players on the board, and he has fallen out of the first round. Look at the gap between what Mel Kiper thinks over here and what the NFL thinks over there.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, all due respect to the GOAT, it doesn't matter what Mel Kiper thinks. The Vikings big board is hidden from the public. It's very possible they had Donovan Jackson as the number 1 interior offensive lineman on their board and 14th overall on their board, and they get to the 24th pick and they're like, whoa, holy cow. We're actually kind of shocked this guy is even still, we don't know what their big board looks like.
The other thing too is it's more intricate than just like BPA. That sounds good, and yes, it's fine, but the reality is this. The Texans were behind the Vikings in the draft, right? The Texans were coming up. The Texans were going to take Jackson because their offensive line stinks. So it's either you take him. So it's either you take him then. But where the emailer brings up, I think this is the better conversation than Starks, or I think the conversation is the trades that they passed on clearly.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to that. John Gargaro says, want to get ahead of this. The people saying the Vikings could have traded back and still drafted Donovan Jackson is the most Monday morning quarterback take of all time.
That's true. Yeah.
Clearly, interior offensive line was a priority, and the best interior defensive linemen were off the board. Props to Kwesi for sticking and picking instead of trading back out of the first round and missing out on their guy. The best offensive line the Vikings will have had in decades, he said. I would say like in 15 years. So yeah, so this is what the trade was. Let's use the Giants-Texans trade. The Giants sent the Texans their 2025 second, so they flip-flopped the 25 and the 34, so they moved back, whatever, like 10 spots. And then they acquired a 2025 third-round pick, the 99, and a 2026 third-round pick. So the Vikings were trying to decide, do we like Donovan Jackson more than the 2 third-round picks we could get, one this year and one next year? And if the answer is we love Donovan Jackson, we went through an entire pre-draft process and we think he's a badass and he helps make this an awesome top 5 offensive line, I can't fault them.
Wade's comment, too, on our YouTube channel. Donovan Jackson not only is from Houston, but he also blocked for C.J. Stroud. Not a stretch to say the Texans would have potentially taken him there, too. I know everyone was fielding. Packers were fielding calls. Vikings were fielding calls. Texans were fielding calls. Maybe they still make that trade. Houston does. But that offensive line in Houston's obviously a mess right now. So I love the idea that they just stuck and picked. And in a bit, I'm guessing you guys saw the Kwesi quote about the golf game analogy that he'd used in high school. We can get to that in a little bit. But I like that they just stuck and picked. And if Jackson was their dude on their big board, like near the top of it, why wouldn't they take him?
Yeah. Can I point out something else, too, that I think some of the analysis of picking a guard in the first round is outdated. It's like 10 or 15 years ago thinking that you can't a guard is not a premium position. You should be able to find guards in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds. And that sounds great. It'd be great if you could just find everything in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. But if you go look at the top 10 highest graded guards in pass protection last year, Pro Football Focus, 7 of the 10 were top 50 draft picks. It is imperative that you draft great athletes at guard now compared to when Sports Dad was the lead beat writer for the Star Tribune, because defenses are throwing the bag at opposing quarterbacks. I mean, Jeremiah Searles brought up the NASCAR packages and all these things, the Brian Flores type defenses. You literally have edge rushers being used up the middle to target centers and guards who are deemed to be less athletic. And so teams would love to have guards that can play tackle or have tackle-like traits, long arms. Donovan Jackson, by the way, longest wingspan of any of the interior offensive linemen. That's right, in this year's draft. That's a tackle trait. You're looking to create athletes who can work in isolation when defenses get crazy with their schemes.
I don't think the Vikings take him if he hadn't played left tackle.
Yeah, that definitely.
I think if he was just deemed a guard, he probably is not. He does not go there. But the real question becomes: if you wanted him and he was going to be gone, was that worth a trade? And with what the Giants, so if the Giants come up to 24 to take Jackson Dart, and you basically get the exact same package back that the Texans get, is that worth it? And what's hilarious is, and if you've got the quote from Kwesi about the golf course, so just replace golf with 2022 draft.
I saw your tweet back to Seifert.
That's all he's talking about. He's basically saying like he's learned. And look, you know what? I'll give him credit. Dude's smart. Dude went to school on what he screwed up, and instead of it being like this, no, this is what we believe. So but it was hilarious because the whole golf thing that you can read is basically just insert 2022 draft, and that's what he's saying.
I'm assuming no one has seen this quote because it was like late in the night last night. So here it is. Kwesi on whether the Vikings felt or feel the need to trade back at any point. I think approaching this draft from a mindset of, hey, it's just if the players hit the ball down the fairway, let's do that. If it's going to be 4 picks at 4 positions that we really want for character people, 4 skill sets we require, let's go do that. And we'll figure everything else out. We'll figure out if we need to load up on UDFAs or whatever. Whatever the course is kind of asking us to hit, we're going to get that club out of the bag and see what happens. We love a good golf analogy on this show.
high school golf.
Yeah, especially when I'm duffing my shots. I love when a guy says, "Oh, we're moving those triple bogeys and the double bogeys." Yeah, I'm still moving those quad bogeys, but that's totally okay, Kwesi. I'm glad you're an okay golfer now.
So, anyways, let's yeah. I mean, there's going to be pushback to any, like, literally they could have done. They could have. By the way, they could have drafted a Malachi Starks at safety or Nick Emanwari, and I think the pushback probably from me too would have been, wait a second now. I thought we were all about fortifying the trenches here, solidifying the best offensive line. There's going to be pushback to anything that they would have done with that pick at 24. So Stephen Bannis says, I really don't understand the dislike for the Donovan Jackson pick from the fans. Dude fills an immediate need, and to Declan's hot take last night, should be an immediate impact player. May I remind Vikings fans that the offensive line gave up 42 pressures and 9 sacks in the wild card playoff loss to the Rams. How could anyone be upset that the Vikings got not 1, not 2, but 3 new starters on their interior offensive line? We as fans have been asking for this for years. I'll wake up this Friday and rejoice that the Vikings completely overhauled their trenches this offseason and drafted what appears to be a really good dude and character guy, not to mention he wasn't getting past the Texans at 25. Job well done.
And, yeah, to Dex's hot take, that's not a hot take. He better step in and start day one. Like he is a left guard. If Blake Brandel starts opening day, something's gone wrong. So, like, this is an immediate plug-in play. This is not a we're going to develop him, we're going to do this or that. You know, ideally Darrisaw's back opening day, and this kid should be by him at left guard from hell, the first snap of training camp. He's a first round pick. Mm-hmm. So, like, this is not I hope he can help. This is he better help. And again, I do think that the Vikings now have the infrastructure to know what they're looking at. And O'Connell's control of the draft, to me, has only gone up and up and up, and that's not a bad thing.
Sad Minnesota Phoenix sports fan says, Phil, you were nattering on about creating a bidding war for their pick last night. Yeah, but I'm just an idiot on a microphone doing a live podcast.
But they did create a bidding war, and they didn't like what they were offered back because they didn't want to miss the guy.
So the bidding was, as we already talked about, move back 10 spots for 2 third-round picks. And they decided, we like Donovan Jackson more. We think he's a stud. We think he's a really good guy. We think he can play left tackle if needed. All right, cool. I don't know. I haven't grinded the film on Donovan Jackson. By the way, Kevin O'Connell sat down with Donovan Jackson during the pre-draft process, watched film with him, got to know him, talked about the transition to left tackle. So this also kind of goes back to, at least for me, my trust level in Kevin O'Connell in particular is very, very, very high. And if Kwesi presents the room with, hey, we could either do this or we could do that, and Kevin says, let's do this, he hasn't given us a ton of reason over 3 years to be like, ooh, I don't know if I trust Kevin with his judgment on this, especially this offensive-related thing.
Yeah, well, and as we discussed at the draft party after the pick last night, too, for anyone that watched the Detroit game, the Rams game, and then the rest of the playoffs, for anyone who said, oh, the offensive line, yeah, it's a little bit of a problem, like it was your trenches, your up front smash mouth guys on both sides of the ball needed to be upgraded significantly.
Yeah.
So, and
full clean out.
To be honest with you, now where O'Connell has to deliver, I think, far more than like a personnel discussion is this play calling. Now it's time to run the football, which he has said he will do. But I mean, now it's time to, like, if he's scratching his head, I could run or pass here, for 3 years, he's passed. And now it's time to be like, no, Kevin, you're going to have to run the football. But you also have built up a team that can do that. You've done this. So, like, I am much more curious. Like, if I have trepidation's too strong a word, but if I have questions, I have far more questions about when it's nut cutting time and play calling than like you made a mistake on personnel decisions.
Yeah. Well, think about, like, we think kind of, I think with the 3 new offensive linemen, your first thought is the 9 sacks, that you're trying to fix the pass protection stuff up the middle for J.J. McCarthy, and that's a huge part of it. But the bigger part of it is what you just said. They couldn't score a touchdown on the ground inside the red zone. They've had single-digit rushing touchdowns the last 2 years. So overhaul your offensive line for that purpose. Go get Jordan Mason for just some extra beef inside the 20s. And then it's going to be up to KOC, like you said, to actually call those plays and trust that they can run the football more effectively.
What happens, just to go back in time, what happens in that Detroit game if they can run the ball in the deep red?
Yeah, they win. Well, they win. They win the game.
Yeah. And you never have the meltdown from Sam because you don't ever have to get there.
I'd flushed those 4 trips to the red zone down, and now you've brought them back up, and they're bad memories now. They're bad memories, but they're lessons learned, right? They're lessons learned.
Right, but they are coloring what we are doing right now. Like they're valuable right now.
I love that they acted on it, though. They took full, aggressive, immediate action with money and draft picks and trade capital to fix these things. They didn't cling to the hope that, okay, if we could, let's just see if that. No, man. Blake Brandel, you're back to being a swing guy, and that's fine. Be an awesome swing guy. Ed, Garrett, best of luck in your future endeavors. But the other thing I love is it's hard to build a great football culture, I feel like, or any culture in anything, without some level of accountability. You can't preach, this is what we're going to win a Super Bowl, or we're going to do this. And then when you've got underperforming players or coaches or employees or whatever it is, you just let it skate. Yeah, this guy is a disaster in pass protection. We can't move the football forward in the red zone, but we aspire to be. It's like, okay, well, you got to hold people accountable. You shouldn't just fire people willy-nilly like the Jets do. But this was the ultimate accountability test for Kevin O'Connell. Yes, he's a player's coach, and yes, he's very likable, but he is damn competitive, and he drew a line and said, yeah, sorry, love you guys, but you can't play for this football team anymore. We're gonna find replacements and set the accountability bar.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is how you win championships. You don't win championships by being a good guy.
Right.
It helps to be a good guy. It's great if you're a good guy. Everybody likes a good guy. But you got to have a dark side.
I don't know. I feel like the heels and the anti-heroes are the new thing, right? No one really likes the good guys anymore. I feel like we've, as a society and film, right? We've kind of gone away from the good guy here. We like an anti-hero story. We like rooting for the heel.
Kevin's turning into a little bit of a...
Yeah. Well, we like that until that person comes at us. If you're playing for a coach and he's like Zim became, then we don't like that because they're mean to us. But we also... I think what O'Connell's doing a great job of is the accountability factor, though, Phil, like you talked about, because he's not being an ass. What he's basically saying is you couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part about being a player's coach, because he builds incredible relationships and he becomes almost like friends with these guys. But then to create that separation, it makes me think more highly of him than maybe I even did 6 months ago. And I was a Kevin O'Connell stan 6 months ago. Yeah,
and he's definitely, not in a bad way, but he is definitely a different person in that building than outside of it. As far as he's not I don't think he's afraid to ruffle feathers, and I don't think being a player's coach means being a patsy. He's definitely not a patsy.
Yep. Okay, before we dive further into the Feedback Friday bag here, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning is here to help with your HVAC needs. They're probably inside Judd's house right now. In fact, he just has them over every day to hang out now, apparently. Never invites us.
They definitely could. They definitely could. You know why? They're great people. But more importantly, great people, that's fine. But do they get the job done? And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a resounding yes. They get the job done. How do I know? Because my furnace a few weeks back fixed. A new water softener, water heater installed, all courtesy of our friends at MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air. And now I want you to join Sports Dad in the Total Comfort Club, because for $8 a month, just like I pay, you are going to get an AC tune-up, a furnace tune-up, and a plumbing check all included to get ahead of those problems before they start. You also get priority service. What does this mean? This means that when something goes wrong, something goes on the fritz, and obviously it's not a DIY situation, they are going to show up quickly at your house, and they are going to take care of that problem. Efficiency off the charts here. If you need repairs, Also, get a 10% discount off the service. All of these things from our friends at MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air. Call them 651-615-4292 or check out their website, callmsp.com. That's callmsp.com.
All right, Dex, if you're a new Vikings player and you just got drafted and now you need to move all your stuff to Minnesota, who should you call?
Our friends at 2 Men in a Truck, who were there yesterday at our Purple Daily draft party as well. They're going to be helping me out next Saturday. I'm moving all this stuff. Very thankful for them because I certainly can't handle these big moves and whatnot. So thankfully they're coming in to help out. And what they quote is what you pay. There's no hidden fees. There's no service charges. Heck, they sent me over a spreadsheet and they said, what do you need moved out of this house? So there was no price gouging. There was no assumptions. They just made it very simple for me. Go to 2menandtruck.com to find a location near you. That's 2menandtruck.com.
Shout out to Federated Mutual Insurance Company as well. They've been helping businesses grow their business through risk management for over 100 years, based in Owatonna, Minnesota, and now spread 50 states wide throughout the country. So whether you are a Purple Daily listener, business owner in Minnesota or somewhere else, you can find out how Federated can help you. There's a full list of industries they specialize in at federatedinsurance.com, but they focus on safety, preventing claims, and risk management to help you focus on surveying down the field to grow your business. They're like a great offensive line for your business. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, this next one comes from Dan McKendrick, who reached out to me to try and get through to Declan. Okay. And he said, hey, Phil, I hope you can help me out with something. Declan mentioned last Friday that he's still looking for a Dante Culpepper jersey. Well, I sent him a Dante Culpepper jersey for Christmas in December, so obviously Dex hasn't opened the present that I sent him months ago. I'm hoping you can encourage him to open my present on the show. I'd really like to see his reaction to getting the jersey he's always wanted. I just spoiled the gift if you even have the package anymore. Oh my God!
I feel like I would get if this was me, I would get a ton of heat.
You would. This is a total Judd move here.
Like I feel like I would be.
Wait. This is so it's like a box. You've just had this unopened box for months.
I just didn't open it. It was in the corner of this room for a while, just hanging out. I will say it's April 25th, so we're almost to Christmas. You thought it was a car bomb. I hope it wasn't a car bomb.
Yeah.
How are you? I don't understand how you're skating on this nonchalant. This man sent you something special. Nice. And now he has to reach out to Phil.
Is it wrapped in like Christmas present? Oh, it's like a Christmas box, dude.
This is unbelievable.
Hold on. There's a card.
Wow. Poor Dan. I'm glad Dan reached back out.
Even I would open this, Dan.
Card here.
I got to be honest, if I'm Dan.
I asked for a doggy card. That's great.
Oh, who's a good boy?
I know you have been waiting this for a long time. I hope you enjoy this from Dan, longtime Vikings fan. All right.
This is an all-time Judd move that
I am
Dex
flabbergasted by the
here.
thoughtlessness of the situation.
The purple wrapping paper.
This guy this was supposed to be below your Christmas tree.
Yeah, wow. Dan's been sitting on this he's probably been thinking about this every day.
Yeah,
I've made this amazing gesture.
Oh
look
my
at
God,
that, dude! Look at that, dude! Get your roll.
This is unbelievable, dude. You could have been wearing that for like 3 months now.
It checks all the boxes of the Mackey and Judd jersey rules too, right? Yeah. It's a player who's older than you.
Yep.
You could argue that it's kind of a funny jersey too, because he's got the roll on thing.
I mean, it's the quarterback from Declan's childhood. It's perfect.
Yeah, dude.
And that jersey's been sitting in that box. Dan, I would like to apologize on behalf of Declan. My sports son. He let me down, let you down.
Wow. Look at that thing, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, but it's a jersey. It should be big. That's great.
Big, but
that's okay.
That's all right.
You can fill it out. You can wear it over like hooded sweatshirts too during.
Do you want to thank Dan since you've got this chance?
This is right because these are the old Reebok ones. This is authentic stuff, right?
I saw one gift. Because I don't know, our listeners probably have noticed this because some people like to call me Diet Corey Cove. I'm a big Puma guy. I love Puma, and I forgot that Puma was an NFL jersey sponsor for a long time. Like there's old school jerseys that have the Puma logo on it as well. So Yeah, this one's Reebok. I think my Sidney Rice one that I was talking about in the Darren Sharper jersey that I had was also Reebok at the time. But yeah, look at this, Dante.
Well, listen, I'm glad that you look good in that jersey.
I'm glad Dan sent Phil a note.
Yeah, Dan, we apologize on behalf of our executive producer here. How rude of him to make you wait 5 months for this package to be unwrapped. But there it is. There's the payoff right there. By the way, we got another one on the Dante front from Dennis Angramson. So he said, yeah, you guys talked about Dante's Get Your Roll On celebration last week. And I wanted to share a little story from the 2000 season that I used to brag to my friends about. And now 25 years later, I tell my kids about this story. So he says, my dad was a season ticket holder through a program the Vikings had with the Marines. His dad was an active duty in the Marines at the time. To make the season tickets really cheap, since men and women in the military aren't the wealthiest, especially the enlisted. But what you don't know is where your seats were until you picked them up at the beginning of the year. And of course, good old Red McCombs allotted the worst possible seats in the Metrodome to this program. We had obstructed view seats at the very top behind the huge concrete pillars for every game. So I remember an early season home game, Dante Culpepper did his signature celebration. And my dad told me it meant that we were rolling, that the Vikings were rolling.
Okay.
I was 17 years old at the time, and I listened to Limp Bizkit a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Jed, are you familiar with Limp Bizkit?
I know the name. I could
Fred
not
Durst.
name you a song, but I remember the name.
So I got the idea that their song Rollin', 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 that would be a perfect fit to be played over the PA system during the game when he would do the arm roll thing after touchdowns. So the next day I dug around on the internet until I found an email address for the Vikings communications department. I sent them the tip about how this Limp Bizkit song would be perfect when Dante does his thing. The next home game, I was shocked when it actually happened. Now, I don't know if it was something that they were already working on, but I like to think that I was the genius behind this tiny piece of Vikings trivia and nostalgia. Been listening to you guys since you were on on KFXN radio and wishing Purple Daily and Score North nothing but success. So there it is. Emailer Dennis is the one that apparently got the Limp Bizkit roll. I don't think Dante was like doing it for Limp Bizkit. I think it was the rap song that we talked about last week. Everybody get your roll on.
Yeah, which
everybody
I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah. So okay, this one comes from Matt. And it's I'm going to read this just because we have received this feedback or question about the draft party in years past. Mm-hmm. So I think it at least warrants like an explanation for those who are wondering. So Matt said, had a great time with my nephew at the Purple Daily draft party last night, presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. A suggestion to improve next year's party would be to broadcast the draft coverage on the big screen or some other draft coverage of some kind. Everyone in the venue can see the stage, so there was no need to have you guys on the big screen. The people at the draft party are diehard draft people, so they are extremely interested in the draft itself, not listening to an extended podcast. No offense. Half of the fun of watching the draft is waiting for the commissioner to announce the pick and listening for the reactions in the crowd. It would be way more suspenseful and entertaining if you were to just play the draft coverage and then react after each pick. At minimum, post the picks on the screen as they're chosen. We actually do that. I hope you don't take this criticism the wrong way. We really did have a good time, but we spent most of the draft party on our phone getting annoyed when you guys ruined the pick because you announced it before ESPN did. And I will just say, one, maybe we don't do a good enough job of like making it clear, but when you come to the Purple Daily draft party, like we are doing a 4-hour live podcast, and we can be your only screen if you want Vikings analysis with the picks mixed in. But the other thing is, we aren't allowed on our YouTube channel or in a ticketed concert venue to play like ESPN's coverage. We would literally get a legal letter from Disney or NFL or whatever if we said, hey, everyone come to this concert venue and we will show you ESPN's product for 4 hours. You can get away with it at like sports bars because they just have coverage on TVs, but we couldn't like disseminate ESPN's coverage on YouTube, or again, our channel would get struck down by lightning.
And my guess is the Vikings would complain because their draft party can do that.
Well, but they're hosting an event in their own building, which I think is different than.
And they're with the league, so they can do what they want.
Correct.
So
they have the rights to the NFL. They literally have the rights to whatever they want.
We've not bought those
NFL
yet.
Team.
I mean, we're working on it.
No,
There's a lot of talks going on.
So I just wanted to make that clear. If you've come to the last couple draft parties and you've wondered, like, wait a second, why are these guys? Yeah. These guys are just talking the whole time.
Why would they shut up?
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to watch ESPN coverage, then maybe the Purple Daily Draft Party is not the event for you. But it felt like most people had a great time. I just felt the need to clarify that it's a legal issue more than anything else. And also, I would say ESPN didn't do a lick on the Vikings last night. Like, there was very little Vikings talk from what I surmised before their pick. And then when they made their pick, they cut to commercial, I think, during the pick. And then the Giants got on the clock right away with a trade. So they didn't even do the Donovan Jackson video package right away. They didn't show his him and his family right away, I guess. They just went right into a New York team is on the clock. Yeah. So our gap to fill on draft night is Vikings, Purple Daily, and maybe we should make that more clear, I guess, going forward. So, end rant.
It was a great time.
Super
I had
fun,
a great time.
Had a blast.
Great seeing people.
Good time. Okay, Matt Swanson says, Vikings QB2, Tommy DeVito, yay or nay? He's now QB4 after last night. Jackson Dart.
I'd be hard-pressed to think he's on Kevin O'Connell's radar.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like KOC and Kwesi and the culture they're building doesn't really want his weird agent guy.
Yeah.
Who's his
Fedora guy?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Agent, no.
I got to think that he's not on their big board of potential quarterback pickups.
I mean, he's an available name now. It is interesting in that, if you're looking for guys you could probably trade a 7th round pick for, Russell Wilson's going to start according to the Giants, and then it's Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart. So Tommy DeVito's not going to be on their team. So he's available. I think he's a name to put on our QB2 list.
I'm going, write this down, UFL future for him.
He might be a draw, man.
Great St. Louis Battlehawk.
Would you be more or less likely to watch a Houston Roughnecks game if Tommy DeVito was the quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
More. No question about it. More. If I know the quarterback, if I know his name, I'm more likely to at least stay tuned for a little while. Not a long time, not the full game, but if it's a guy who I'm AJ McCarron.
Yeah.
I might watch some snaps. If it's Joe Blow, I'm out right away.
Yeah. Josh Dobbs, I'm in.
That'd be the type of guy actually that they should pay and say, okay, we're going to make you a star in the UFL. That's it.
What they should do is, I know that they're not making money yet, but they got to get more eyeballs on the product.
Yes.
What they should do is allot more money to quarterbacks that you've heard of that aren't going to be number ones. If you could say, hell, you know who would be a great example? Now, Jameis Winston makes 7 figures still as a number 2, number 3 quarterback in the NFL, and he's kind of a border, he can still start. But in 2 years, if Jameis Winston is no longer considered a starter in the NFL, if you could allot $2 million for him to be a UFL starting quarterback, I would watch Jameis Winston go in there and just sling it in the UFL.
And mic'd up the whole game too.
Oh, yes. 100%.
Mic'd up so you can hear him in the huddle and things.
Totally.
But you're right. There would be a very compelling list of NFL slappy QBs who I would watch, you know what? Because he's so reckless, Sam Howell. I would watch some Sammy just slinging the ball around. He'd probably complete passes because guys there, the defensive backs probably aren't as good, or they're certainly not as good. But there are some guys I wouldn't probably walk across the street to watch play an NFL game because they suck. But then I'd be compelled to watch them if it was the UFL.
I think there's a chance that you might get to watch Sam Howell and document for Judd's Camp Notes at some point.
It's on the table.
Could see that.
It's on the table.
C. Mizzle chimes in and says, so I watched Adam Schefter's podcast yesterday morning when he was talking about Kirk Cousins, he mentioned Minnesota or Pittsburgh again. So he did it in written form and on his podcast. However, he says, and I quote, "Those teams make the most sense to me," meaning that there is no credible report. He's just guessing like everybody else. You think Adam Schefter is guessing on Minnesota and Pittsburgh?
I think he's got some. I think he has intelligence. Like it's not. I don't think he's been told this is likely to happen, but he talks to too many people not to have an idea of where the wind is blowing.
Yeah, I mean, 15 years ago when Adam was new to ESPN on the old Royce and Mackey radio show.
Oh, he was a great guest.
1500
you guys
ESPN.
fired him. It's terrible what you did to him.
We literally did fire him as a weekly contributor. I mean, he's fine because he was so distracted. He was like on 3 different phones and he was kind of half-assed answering questions. We're like, listen, dude, like if you don't want to do this, we don't have to do this. And I'm sure he's a good guy, but one thing he made clear when we would ask him questions, we would ask him like, what do you think about this, or an opinion on something? And he was super uncomfortable giving opinions.
Yes.
And a lot of those guys are. They don't want to give opinions because an opinion could burn a source. If he says something that's wrong, so those guys deal in information, and they do one of 2 things with information. They either report it, a source told me this, or I'm hearing that, or they deliver an opinion, quote unquote,
right,
that's rooted in information. So maybe he heard something about the Steelers or the Vikings, but it's not enough for him to be like, a source told me this.
right.
So he floats it and says, you know what would make sense? It's a highly educated guess rooted in information. I don't think he's just throwing the Vikings out there.
Well, and after Thursday night, the Steelers remain an option. I saw the immediate responses. This means Rodgers delivered to the Steelers, but Aaron's a weird dude. We don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirk definitely remains an option. My guess is Schefter hears things like, I don't think the Steelers are going to take Shedeur. And then they're like, so keep an eye on Kirk to the Vikings or the Steelers. It's interesting, too, that Schefter didn't even mention the Browns.
Yeah. I mean, the Browns could take Shedeur today, right?
Well, and the Browns, I think, are going to go with Flacco or Pickett. But the fact is, like, that's still not, like, the most solidified QB situation. And the fact that he didn't, like, I think if he was truly just spitballing, you mentioned the Steelers, you might mention the Vikings, but you mentioned the Browns, and he didn't even mention them.
Yeah. Blaine Upchurch says, currently at the NFL draft, absolutely ridiculous that a beer costs $17 at the NFL draft. You can't not drink when you're experiencing an NFL draft, so going to pay it. But just wondering from you guys, what do you think is a reasonable beer price?
Ooh.
Oh, this is a great question, and to me, it's easy. First of all, it depends on the beer.
Parameters.
Like IPA, craft beer, Bud, Coors Light. I think a fair price for a normal standard beer, like a Bud Light, whatever. Domestic. I think an event like that is about $8. I think a craft beer, the craft beers at Target Field a few years back, Dex, were about 11, 10, and I think that's fair. And they're still making plenty of
my gosh,
dough off that because they're literally getting, they're paying how much per barrel or it's very cheap. So, but I could certainly live with $8 for a normal beer, $10 to $11 for a craft beer. Anything beyond that, which we've gone way beyond that, to me is ridiculous.
And I take it parameters being like sporting event,
yeah.
concert, right? We're not talking like a restaurant
no.
beer. Like we're talking at a
event.
At
a venue, yeah.
Venue. Yeah, I'd probably say a cap of 10. I could do 10. I can do 10 for like a domestic beer. I can do 10 for a domestic beer. And like 12 for a craft. I think unfortunately, like, because I'm 32, so I've been legal age of drinking for only 11 years. This is the only thing I kind of know is these prices. So I think 10's probably mostly pretty fair. Kind of where I'm at, man.
17 is
17's
absurd.
steep. That's steep. That's a steep
Did
price.
you guys see what people who own homes in Green Bay were charging to park yesterday?
Yeah.
For parking? What was parking?
I saw 125. The cheapest I saw 100. So someone drove around and documented the prices. And the cheapest that I saw was 100, but it was like 150, 125.
Yeah. It's the draft will come here at some point. I mean, they're going to all the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's obviously like a Super Bowl is here, so it'll be fun to have it here. It's just Green Bay is literally just a town though. So it's funny that I saw Mike Greenberg and I think it was Booger McFarland were in like a diner outside somewhere in Green Bay, and Greeny put a tweet out saying, "I got laughed at when I tried to order like an almond milk latte at this diner." It's like, I would
New York City to see Mike Greenberg order that in Green Bay. I'd probably pay. Speaking of, you just said how much would I pay for a beer? I think I'd pay $20 to watch Mike Greenberg walk into a hole in the wall coffee shop in Green Bay, Wisconsin for a non-oat fat milk latte.
Do you guys have oat milk here?
Yeah.
No?
They should follow him around with a camera and do like a documentary just on his off the camera experiences there. I would just love to see him operating there.
Greeny interacting with a cow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's just so and you know what? For football stuff, I've said this. Green Bay's fantastic. It's a little bit small for this, but by the time the draft comes here, write this down. $20 a beer. It'll be $20 a beer.
Oh my God. It's so dumb.
Easy.
So dumb, man. Hey, before we get to a few other ones here, we will be live again tonight from 6 to 7 o'clock on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Just the Vikings don't have a pick until the very end of the third round, but we'll hang out. We'll do some projecting on kind of some of the things that the internet is hearing and that we're hearing about what they may do the rest of the draft. So join us tonight, 6 o'clock, Purple Daily YouTube channel for a night 2 stream. We will be live on the Score North YouTube channel for a post-game flagrant howls after Lakers-Wolves Game 3, and then we'll be in kind of reaction mode for anything else the Vikings do, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. And speaking of beer, Craft Beer Fest is going on this weekend in the Twin Cities, Dex.
That's right. Go to MinnesotaCraftBeerFestival.com. It's Saturday. It's tomorrow, April 26th, the Minneapolis Convention Center. Minnesota Craft Beer Festival. Over 80 breweries, unlimited pours. There'll be live music, whether you like a Pilsner or lager like I do, whether you like something a little heavier like an IPA. Hell, you can still get a porter even with the weather turning warmer. MinnesotaCraftBeerFestival.com to get your tickets.
Love it. Hey, North American Banking Company is here powering Feedback Friday today. Minnesota-based with 6 locations in Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, and 50th and France. And just in getting to know the team at North American Banking Company the past few months, I've noticed a few things with my own trained eyes. Friendly, knowledgeable people, which I feel like is a lost art in banking and business, where everything is becoming more automated. They took the time to learn about me, family, future, everything. And they focus very carefully on the safety and security of your accounts, cutting-edge online tools. So if you're interested in a better and more local banking experience in the Twin Cities, go to nabankcode.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankcode.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. All right, let's see here. Feedback Friday. Master Yodonald says, all last year you guys said building to be real contenders for next year. Now you're saying maybe not this year, but next year. The popular Minnesota saying every year is next year, the year after, the year after. We need to stop with this and just say that we are contenders this year, and anything less than a run deep in the playoffs is a failure.
Who said next year? I said like a day ago, they clearly are trying to win it all this year. I don't even know where this came from. Like, there have been times I've said that because it's clear, but beyond, like, when you look at if you look at the free agent class, ain't got a lot to do with 2026. They're trying to win right now.
I mean, I think you've been a little more steadfast there. I think I have said it's hard to see a first-year starting quarterback going to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
I think they're a playoff team. I think they can win the division. Hell, J.J. McCarthy has been huge in big games, and he's always outperformed like his age at every step too. Mm-hmm. But in terms of winning a Super Bowl with a first-year starting quarterback, I think they're entering a Super Bowl window, and I expect them to be highly competitive. I think they need to win a playoff game this year. My expectation right now is Kevin O'Connell, go win your first playoff game. Then we can talk about a real Super Bowl contendership in 2026. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sure. I don't think that they are thinking this is a 2026 play. Like, I think that yes, that's part of it, but they are clearly trying to win right now. They're not internally saying, well, yeah, we probably can't do this and that. So, like, I'm on board with they are trying to win a Super Bowl immediately.
Yeah.
But the things that you bring up are good points. You're probably right, but that's not how they're thinking necessarily.
If we could reverse engineer this question or this take, would you criticize them in February if they didn't win the Super Bowl? Or didn't go to the NFC Championship game?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But
they'd be disappointed.
Next year, I think I would. But, like, back to the Kirk Cousins era, when you've got your franchise quarterback, go back 7 years.
Right.
13 wins, NFC Championship game, final piece to the puzzle, Kirk Cousins. Okay, it is very clear with your number one defense, your weapons, your highly paid quarterback, that it is burn the boats. It's NFC Championship game minimum, because that's where you just were. Right. And it's time to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
And if they don't, then they're going to get criticized. I think there has to be a little bit of leeway here over like the next 2 or 3 years to see what you have in J.J. McCarthy before you can say, oh yeah, I would rip them if they didn't get to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that they're built to. I just think that they have built the team to win now, and that's apparent from what they did in March. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would rip them for. I mean, they have to make the playoffs, I think.
Win a playoff game.
Yeah. And win a 100%. Playoff game. And I mean, hell, if you win a playoff game, you're then potentially, assuming that you didn't get the bye, 1 game away from the conference championship game. But I like what they're doing, and I like the fact, I think the most important thing that I keep coming back to is they have really improved the areas where they needed to. And I don't know that they had necessarily been in a position from a cap standpoint or just from a decision standpoint to make these type of upgrades before.
Yeah. Let's do a couple more here. Marshall says, love me some Thursday, but stop with the Jordan Addison trade nonsense. He is arguably a number 1 receiver, and if he's given the chance with his pure talent and route running, and we are paying him nothing, the off-the-field issues happen. Let's move past it. What has happened this offseason? Nothing yet. He's mature. Well, there's a long way to go.
That was July last year. That was July when he fell asleep on the 405.
Yeah. He's maturing. He got the support and infrastructure with the Vikings to course correct his early driving instances. He and JJ are the next Moss and Carter. You guys need to learn to appreciate what we have instead of looking at the what ifs.
Oh, I completely disagree. My life is based on what ifs. like you literally have a guy who has had off the field driving indiscretions 2 consecutive years, including a major one in July. Remember, some guys never mature. Like, this is, I refuse to plug my ears and cover my eyes and hope. Justin Jefferson, for instance, okay, prime example, has done nothing off the field ever, or hell, on the field, to make you think, I don't know, there's some red flags here, right?
Yeah.
And good on him for that. So I'm all on board there. But when you have issues, when you have, quite frankly, you can't ignore this. When you have a dad that's on Twitter constantly and at times basically ripping the team, like, there's a lot of things, as we talked about with Jay last night, Searles, on the podcast. The team knows a lot more than we do. And so I absolutely refuse to just appreciate it and shut up. There's times where that's a big mistake, and I'm going to tell you that mistake can start with a team. I think the Vikings are self-aware enough not to have that problem, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, it's tough because if you're purely a fan, you hate the idea of guys like us talking about your players, getting traded. But we tend to take a stance more from like a pseudo front office perspective, I think, of like, what would the strategic move here be over the next 2 or 3 years versus Jordan Addison is one of my favorite players or whatever it may be. So I think we kind of create some emotional distance there. But there is something to be said for at least the next year, keep your weapons in place to help J.J. McCarthy, and then maybe next offseason it becomes more of a conversation.
Absolutely.
So
that's fair.
All right, dudes. That's the Feedback Friday batch here this morning. The morning after the Vikings selected Donovan Jackson as the final piece, the final ring on that fist for their offensive line. And a reminder, we're going to be live again tonight at 6 o'clock on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We'll get Thor back in the mix after the draft is over to recap everything, but he is super high on this draft pick. Thor had Donovan Jackson number 2 on his list of guards. So it's a Thor-approved draft pick. Any other final thoughts or words of wisdom from you guys before we say goodbye here?
Do we think the Vikings do we think the Vikings either trade tonight to get more picks, or do we think at the end of this thing they end up with 4 picks?
I think they'll wind up with at least 5 picks.
Yeah.
So possible trade back tomorrow, you think?
I could see like trading out of the 97 for, it really depends, but like move back from, we did this a few times in our simulations. You can move back from like 97 to 103 or 104, pick up an extra 6th or 7th round pick. But you're going to want, if you get extra picks, it's going to be 6th and 7th rounders at this juncture, unless you include a player for a pick.
Or are they going all in because the UDFA class is so huge, it's so deep, includes a bunch of guys that Searles told me would have gone around 6 and 7 in the non-COVID times. Is that where they're going to try to make up the difference? Although Jeremiah, who's an agent, tried to explain to me like the caps on those things now, and there's a signing bonus cap, and there's things that go on your cap. I had to peace out.
I know, it's very, he explained that on O-line committee this week, and I was like,
and it goes on your.
Go ahead.
And if you sign a guy, it goes on your cap, but if you cut him, it stays on your cap, and another team that's like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. That's why he's an agent, and we are just idiots.
I can barely do math like that. So like I couldn't be as catty.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Hey, thanks again for an awesome Purple Daily Draft Party last night. And if you haven't already, please click that like button and the subscribe button on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star rating and a positive review can help us keep growing this awesome community of Vikings fans. Okay, we're going to take a deep breath, maybe take a nap, and we'll see you later on today. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.